let's call this meeting to order. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First on our agenda is Ritter Strategic Services. Mr. Ritter.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Barry Ritter, owner of Ritter Strategic Services, your public safety consultant for Wayne County.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having us. So, well, where do I begin? The planning process for the radio tower and first responder project that county government funded has been well underway. A lot of work being done in the background. That was a two-pronged approach to this project out of the report that you had accepted several months ago. The first being the tower implementations for the 800 megahertz transition for county volunteer fire departments, and then the end user equipment inventory at each of the fire departments. I'll tell you that we have two more departments to do the surveys, one tonight, one in the morning. Those will be complete, which will then allow us to really define how many assets we're looking at for first responders, how many pagers, how many mobiles, and how many portables. We have a standing call next week with the subcommittee, which Brad represents you on here at the county, to provide some of that information to them, begin to make some decisions on how we move forward with that part of the project. The good thing is that for the end user equipment, we do not have to go to bid for that. We can use the state's QPA. And it is our hope, based off of experiences in other counties, is that we can negotiate with one or more vendors for added features and functions on the end user equipment based on the number of devices that is part of this project. When you start totaling pagers for all the firemen in the county, you're reaching 300 pagers. A lot more portables than mobile radios on the 800 system, but when your average cost for a portable handheld radio is around $7,000, and a mobile is probably $5,000 to $6,000, depending on which vendor and what feature and what model you're buying. Those begin to add up pretty quickly. As you know, we have $1.5 million slated for this project, and depending on decisions that are made and the direction we go, I've shared with the president that the 1.5 is not going to stretch to meet the objective of this project. Can I tell you how much? Absolutely not. The 1.5 puts a big dent in what we're going to need, but as you work with council and identify funding options, we'll have a better idea as costs start coming in. Next week, we're meeting with Motorola to begin planning the radio infrastructure at the tower sites. And from that, they'll be able to give us costs for that equipment, because that's also on the state's QPA.
I was going to say, I didn't want to interrupt you, but the reason you don't have to bid it is because you're getting all this off of QPA.
Correct. The things that won't, or that are not on the state's QPA that we'll have to be buying will be like the radio buildings at the tower sites. Those run $25,000 to $30,000 a piece. Things like that we can just do invitation to quote based on the threshold. There are multiple vendors on the state's QPA. The county fire chiefs are actively involved in this project with Matthew and Aaron and my team to make the decisions on what radio, what manufacturer that is their preference. And in the coming weeks, I'll start working with Ron on developing the MOU that commissioners will enter into with each unit of government that's going to have those radios, and defining the plan on how that's going to be done. So a lot of work being done, and the biggest question is cost, and I would say in the next 60 to 90 days we'll have a better understanding of what that target cost is going to be. So I know we're under a deadline for either expenditure or contract by the end of this year, and we'll meet that. The second phase are the towers themselves. And we knew going into the project, and once my team finished the propagation mapping, the areas that are deficient in the county, obviously you are well aware, were affirmed that what the first responders were reporting was true and accurate. And we've developed a recommendation on how to mitigate those deficiencies in the northeast part of the county, east Fountain City, Arba Pike area, and then in the southwestern part of the county along 40, east of Cambridge City, there seems to be a dead zone that we showed you that extends north up over 70. We're confident in the construction of towers in those two geographical areas, that adding equipment to the state system will solve that problem. It'll provide sufficient coverage for the volunteer fire departments, but it will also enhance the coverage for the law enforcement agencies and EMS that's using the 800 megahertz system currently. So we talk about towers, and towers are expensive, and we knew that we operating in limited budget, building towers would be the bulk of the project, and if we needed multiple towers. And so through networking, we were able to identify a company out of Ohio that it's a tower company. It's what they do. They build towers, manage towers for wireless and broadband and for government entities for public safety. They've done some work up in Adams County, DeKalb County area, multiple towers through the Midwest. We reached out to the company, and the owner is here today, Grant Phillips. We began to have dialogue with Mr. Phillips about plans for Wayne County, or this part of Indiana, Western Ohio, and for his company, and how we may be able to leverage a partnership with Tower King for Wayne County, and that would prevent Wayne County from erecting towers and maintaining towers, and more along the lines of a public-private partnership. It's a business model that Tower King participates in and provides priority for public safety. And so I invited him here today to speak to you, to introduce himself, his company, talk to you about the model that they provide. There are some things that are confidential that he can't share with you based on where that is at, but I will tell you that we visited County Highway today with Mike Sharp, and to look at where the existing tower is at now, and the feasibility of Tower King putting a tower on that property to meet our needs in that dead zone. Mr. Phillips believes that's feasible, and he and Mike had a lot of discussion, and I think Mike is going to be here today about location, access, and use of that, and so we think that's a viable option. The northeast part of the county, options are there, but there's no specifics that's been discussed as far as location. But with that, I'll introduce Grant Phillips and let him tell you a little bit about his company and give you the opportunity to ask questions.
Thanks, Barry. Hi, everybody. As Barry mentioned, my name is Grant Phillips. I'm the owner of Tower King. We own probably around 80 towers right now in 14 states. We probably had under our belt anywhere from 110, 120, I don't know, towers in my day that I've built, constructed. Years ago, I was responsible with the state of Indiana. I built 12 to maybe 15 towers for IPSC. That's the program that you guys are integrating in. I still own several of those towers that the state is on, so I'm very, very familiar with the process that the counties utilize to integrate with the state. Barry, again, had reached out to me from Shane Reckowig, who I had done some work for in Adams County, doing this exact same system. We did this as well in Steuben County. Helped them. We built towers for them. They got on the towers integrated with the county. And as a tower owner, it's what we specialize in. We build towers and lease them out to carriers, governments, AM, FM, wireless internet, it's all kind of fun stuff. So I'm here to kind of get the conversation going. As Barry had indicated, there's some sites possibly at the highway garage that would work. And then we also have an area that we have been looking at for some time in the northeast corner that would also meet your guys' requirements for your communications as well. So I'm just kind of here to talk about a model that rather than the county coming up with all the money to put towards the tower, what we would do is we would fund the tower internally. We would finance that all on our own, and in return we would do a monthly rent with you guys. So that way you don't have to put up all the capital up front.
And so, on that basis, then we would be responsible to purchase our own antennas with the hardware that would go on the tower.
Correct. Yep.
And then maintain that, or would you?
So that would be with you guys. Probably Motorola or some a vendor would install that, but we would be responsible from start to finish of the tower itself. So we would do everything required, all permitting, all the construction of the tower, and have it ready for you guys to hang your equipment on. Put your building down below, and everything would be completed for you, ready.
So each tenant would have their own building.
Correct.
With their
Yep.
hardware in that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And insurance liability in the event of
Yeah, we
severe
carry
storms.
we carry a $5 million umbrella policy for just us.
And have you located a place in the northeast corner already that?
Yeah, so we have
lease or
some
purchase
some
land?
potential landowners. Well, we haven't reached out to landowners yet, but I have a search area that's been given to me a while back from a wireless carrier that has interest there, and I presented that to Barry and his team, and we had some overlap there, so it seems like a good place to put. Rather than have two towers, an emergency
Right.
communications tower and another tower pop up somewhere, I can do both in one tower. It's always nice when you get that less towers in the air.
And I assume, Barry, you've talked about, as we've talked about, the ridge that doesn't allow radio communication to go through, and this would be sited in a place where that would not be a factor, or it would be tall enough to not be a factor.
It would be tall enough that I think we've been talking like 340-foot towers,
Yeah, I think so. That's good height.
guided versus freestanding. Freestanding is more expensive than a guided tower. All of our propagation mapping was done in the 250-foot range. So public safety being given priority on tower height. If we went at 250-foot or 300-foot, there's still ample range in the top part of that for private leases for Tower King.
And when we met up at the garage, it was kind of, there's an existing small tower there, and I know that there's some weak signal. In one of the far corners, there's a little weak service there for the county garage, but locating that equipment onto the new taller tower would greatly enhance that, and then we could take that other smaller tower down as it no longer would be needed. So kind of consolidate everything in one structure on the county property.
Okay.
Yeah, the fall that we have here in Wayne County in terms of elevation is 3 times greater than Niagara Falls.
I saw coming in on 227, the highest spot in Indiana, the sign, and I was like,
Right.
as a tower guy, I wanted to go see that.
Well, that's the northeast corner.
Yep.
If you go down to the southeast corner, it's a huge fall.
And I would have thought that to southern Indiana, because it's a lot more hilly down there. I thought that would have been the high point, but it's really cool.
The fall occurs mostly in Wayne County.
Yep. And then it goes down, yep.
Which is why we have a lot of headwaters, creeks, which is why we have so very many bridges.
Wonderful. Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I think one of the advantages to the county is the Tower King's operation leases grant to put towers on it. And that obviously the county would pay the lease to have equipment on that tower. Your lease is based on how much equipment, I think you call it load. One of the benefits to putting a tower on county highway is Tower King would not be paying a lease payment for real estate, and through contracting, the county would experience a cost savings to some degree, whatever that number would be,
Right.
based on the lease payment for having equipment on the tower. Based on the cost of the tower and the maintenance, Wayne County can pay a monthly lease payment for a lot of years before they exceed the cost and maintenance of a tower.
Now, the tower at the highway department, would there be other equipment that you would lease for other also.
Yeah, so what
That's your advantage of doing it, right?
Correct. And then also what I like to do as well is when I have a tower that I work with emergency responders on is if I get cellular business on that tower, then I reduce your rent. So we'll call you the anchor tenant, and then if I get a cellular user or somebody else on the tower, your rent will go down when that user comes home. So that way we both win.
This is a layman's question. Do we lose any efficacy as a result of having the tower crowded?
No. No, I build them over designed. They're solid leg steel. My guide towers are very strong, and I build extra capacity and extra room, especially for your equipment and future equipment. In our industry, it's always easier to build it stronger than modify it later. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
And the fact that there is a cell service that's also on there doesn't degrade our ability to communicate.
No, they're going to be
Different.
totally my understanding. Of course,
Different
the
wavelengths.
frequencies are totally different, so
Okay.
they're there and you're here, so there shouldn't be any interference there. And it's all FCC licensed.
And so if we go down this road and at first we're the only one on the tower, we pay X, that you get another client to put something else on there, then our cost would
Correct.
decrease. And 2 towers in Wayne County, are those too close together for you to be able to generate other tenants for both of those towers, or is that still
Very good
something
question,
that's-
and I don't think so. I think they're far enough away to attract business at each tower. I don't know the number off the top of my head. I'm not sure if we know that, but I remember looking on a map and they're pretty far away. They both have
Probably
different people interested in them, so I think
8
they
or
both make
10
sense.
miles difference maybe.
I'm not sure what direct line of sight.
And the northeastern tower could serve Ohio.
Yeah, I own the tower in Union City, and I built that one for IPSC, and it was always interesting because it's serving Indiana, but the carriers bleed over into Ohio to serve. But that's the nature of the beast when you're on the county
Only
line.
where the Centerville tower would probably
Yep.
not be as much reach. I do have a question. With 80, you said 80 towers,
Yeah.
and mostly Ohio, Indiana, this Great Lakes area. Do you have any experience with any of your clients having obtained like Homeland Security grants? Have you found that towers are attractive grant recipients to this world of Homeland Security?
So I'm not sure where the grants come from. In my world, my cellular customers, I've never, in my experience, seen them get grants, but counties and public jurisdictions, I definitely have seen them get money in this situation. And rather than use the money towards the towers, we come in, we pay that price to build the tower, so that way you guys have the money to go buy other things that are required for the project. So we kind of fill in that gap to complete the project. But personally, I've never received any grants or any of my customers, but I've only worked with public people or organizations that have received funding. From the
But you
government.
know that, like Steuben County or in any of your Indiana clients, public sector clients been on the receiving end of?
I don't ask those questions,
Okay.
but I'm sure they have. They say they need a tower built and this is how they want to do it. I come in and do my job, but I don't ask the particulars where their financing comes from.
But you
Very-
in the conversation, the periphery conversation, you are aware
You're
that
not
this is
aware.
the kind
Yes.
of project that can
Okay.
be grant worthy. Thank you.
It's worth investigating.
Absolutely.
I can tell you, and Matthew can speak to this probably greater than I can, that in the 2023 round of grants for radio communications, and of all the grants that were submitted, there were only 3 in the state of Indiana that were funded.
Okay.
So
You
this,
passed out this map, do you have?
yeah, I wanted to orient you. We went to County Highway and walked that area with Mike, and the most realistic part of that real estate is down in the left corner, where it's the grassy area, the Sandral,
Close to 40 there.
yeah, close to 40,
So
west.
Be the
of the
west, the
building.
southwest corner.
Southwest corner.
Yeah.
Of the property.
Yeah, and Mike, is gracious enough to say, yeah, he can live with that. It's okay. It benefits the county. It benefits.
Did you
him.
say that, Mike?
That is.
He's a team player, right?
That's what the
That's a quote.
yeah,
Yeah.
he said I'm a team
Yeah.
player.
Now, obviously, Grant
Use
will
air
have to.
quotes?
Grant will have to do drawings to determine if that area is sufficient for a guided tower to be there, with all the restrictions that they have from the feds and the state.
And so it would have to be far enough north, I suppose, that if it did fall for some reason, it wouldn't fall onto 40. So it'd be kind of,
I
it
hope it
wouldn't be
doesn't
right
fall.
on.
I hope it doesn't fall, but
Exactly,
our
right.
towers are definitely designed so we have a fall
Get that
design.
setback.
Yeah, so we meet a fall zone requirement. Usually on a guide tower, it's around 50 to 60%. So if it's a 100-foot tower, the most it'll fall 60 feet. So if it's a 300-foot tower, most would fall be about half the height of the tower.
Okay.
Steve, can you recall our tower codes from right off the top of your head, what our setbacks might be for cell towers and the like?
Well, this would be a public utility, so it's not an issue. The only thing it'd be, I assume these are lighted towers.
And we, of course, would follow the setbacks from like the State Highway 48. They probably have like a, I don't know, 60 foot from center of road, or, we'll find all that out when we start digging in.
Yeah, I'm just curious because we do have an attractive public art in our snow plows that are shiny and beautiful and metallic.
But I can live with losing those
Sculpture.
at a tower.
That is not, aesthetically the most attractive place to place a tower, frankly.
No, but it'll get a fireman there if your house is on fire.
That's a good point.
I mean, is that why? It's because of the elevation, or why is that prominent positioning the most
On
evident?
that piece of property, because it's the largest piece of real estate that we could use and not impede county highways' use of their
So
property.
they're using a lot of.
And the woods rolls down. There's the woods there to the east or west.
Seems to be
It
like
rolls
the
straight down.
feasible place.
Because we have the rest of the county property is already in use. Is that right?
With his
With
operation.
his operation.
Right. We don't want to do anything that would
So the county doesn't own
impede what
this
he's
brown
doing.
field.
It goes down in a valley.
Oh, it's too
So-
far down. Okay, now that I picture
Pretty
it
steep
now.
to the west. So I told him, and there's a river down through that way. If you get up on top behind the building and so forth, there could be areas, but yet then it would get in our way for our growth and so forth. So I thought putting it down there, it's not something, that's appealing to look at, but it won't be in front of the plows per se, to hide them or anything, but
And so this is kind of the low point of your property, probably in terms of elevation. Does that?
well, it gets lower into that wooded area.
Yeah.
And drops down lower. But yeah, it's a little bit lower of an area from the drop. From where the tower currently is, there is a drop that it comes down, maybe 30 feet, 40 feet. I don't know.
How big is the footprint with the cables?
So if we go with a 300, let's use the 340 foot tower, it would be, if we'd squeeze it in as much as we could, it would be 50% guy radius. So from the center of the tower, each wire would come out 170 feet. And there would be 3 of those, 3 sets, or 3 points in the ground where the wires would go up to the tower.
Okay.
We might be able to make it smaller than that. That's one thing that Barry mentioned. I have to kind of go back to the computer and see if we can fit one there.
Does it depend on the soils and?
Yeah, so we'll do a geotech, and that'll determine the foundation size, and then the engineers figure all of that out. But we should be able to, regardless of soil, build a foundation that's easily capable of handling the 50% guy radius.
Well, I'm certainly open to, investigating it further, and if it works for you and it fits, and Mike has no issues with, that's just grass that you mow, I assume, more than anything,
Well, I think
Good stuff,
so.
yeah.
Around that tower, the way my understanding was, there'd be a fence, like a 50-foot radius fence in the building on the inside part of that. That would all be. He said they take care of the gravel part as far as spraying it and so forth. So we just have to mow around the wiring.
That area right now, you don't do anything.
We're basically
except
just mow
the
it.
grass, right?
Yes.
So.
The wiring would be inside the fence?
No, the wires,
Yeah.
the guy wires would be outside of the fence.
Okay.
That's
But
really the
the
only thing we
wires
have to
would
mow.
be like what'd you say, 100 and
170 feet.
so picture a square football field. 106, okay.
So the football field would be 300 feet
2 foot,
long.
yeah.
It'd be about half a football
2
field of width.
Yeah, 3 football fields, that's a big area with the guy
Well, it'd be about
wires.
50 yards. It'd be about half a football field in length
Yeah,
for
okay,
the guy wires.
okay. That's a pretty big
I
footprint.
think it sounds very feasible.
Yeah, Yeah, the aesthetics aren't ideal maybe, but
It's not any different than any tower anywhere else,
So-
except we get the benefit of
We
it.
already have a tower
Absolutely.
there for one
Yeah.
thing, so,
I just wondered why there rather than, okay.
and that's why I think it makes sense to continue
Sure.
moving in this
Great.
direction. Ron,
I
you
had a
have,
couple of questions.
Yeah,
on the
absolutely.
lease. I take it there is no option to purchase the lease, and part of the county, you basically will retain ownership of the tower, I mean.
Correct. Yes.
So therefore, is the lease structured as a tax exempt?
That would be on your end for the tax exempt part.
Well, usually it would be on yours, because if there's no option to purchase, it's probably not, would be my guess. It's just a pure lease of a personal.
That's traditionally how we've done with the state, and everybody's just a traditional
So
lease.
you don't require, an opinion that this is considered debt by the county, that it's tax exempt or not. That's not on your radar.
No, we've never done like that. I mean, not that we would be opposed to it, but just the way we're set up.
Well,
Everything's-
physically, if we go to lease $200,000 worth of computer equipment, it's going to be structured because it usually has a purchase option to purchase at the end. It's going to be structured as a tax exempt lease because that's the benefit to the lessor. And the only problem with us is that it requires that we incur some expense if we have to with legal counsel to bless the tax exempt nature of it, because that's beyond my pay grade.
Sure. Good question.
Not a problem.
so far.
And what kind of terms on the leases do you?
So it's all site dependent, and I don't know just yet. That's kind of today, it's just kind of give you the idea of what we're looking to do, and then once we find out the loading of the equipment, I'll go back to Barry, we'll run the numbers, and I'll present a package that says this is about how much it's going to cost. But right now, we're so early in the game, I really don't know.
Okay,
I was looking for your blessing to move forward with this conversation with Tower King. Let him present a packet back to commissioners.
I'll make that motion that we continue this conversation and see where it takes us.
Second?
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
We look forward to hearing back from you and keeping this conversation going. It sounds like the potential for a great partnership, and we'll be interested to see how the numbers work out.
Very good. I appreciate the time, and I'll get right on it.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you for driving over.
Yeah, appreciate
27 minutes.
Look at that.
I beat you, Jeff.
You're not done yet. Come on up and answer other questions for the next 3 minutes.
No comment.
So, seriously, back to the issue of equipment. You're continuing the conversations with departments involved, and you think by the end of August, let's say, you'll have numbers for all of this, and we'll be able to be in a position to make decisions on starting to put together contracts.
I believe so. Our priority on the survey end for the volunteer fire departments is to finalize the inventory. I'm going to have the chiefs certify that what we recorded is what they believe their minimum expectation for equipment.
Okay.
It's interesting that the 800 system, some of these departments, they do fish fries to put fuel in their fire trucks. Some of these departments still have the original 800 radios that Fred Griffin handed out as part of the EMA federal grant process in the early 2000s. Some of them work, some of them don't. Others have equipment that is newer, but it's reached end of life. That equipment is still operable in the system. It can remain on the system. There's just no parts, and the manufacturer doesn't support it. And then there's at least one department in the county that has no 800 equipment.
Are all departments cooperating with you now?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Well, there's reservations from departments about reliability, and some departments have gone through and bought all their firemen VHF handhelds, and that's what they use for. One department uses it for tones, for paging. Another uses it for fireground, and so our message to them was we cannot replace all of those VHF with 800 radios. There's not enough money in this budget. You can maintain that VHF system as your fireground, on-scene communications. You know, you can do that. You know, Matthew and I have had conversation about maintaining the VHF system to some degree for redundancy if the 800 system went out. But it's not like that frequency is going to be done away with and those departments cannot use it. There's been some conversation around interoperability. And, you know, law enforcement is moving to encryption. Fire will not be on encryption, and how will that work? There's pathways of communication for fire to talk to EMS, but the committee's going to have that conversation next week and what that would look like. That's a long answer to tell you, yes, they've been very cooperative. Some departments have said we've been waiting a really long time for this. It's past time, but they recognize they didn't have the money to do it. And so they're very appreciative of the county and that citizens committee for going down this path.
So the discussion is on the basis of this is a one-time pot of money to be able to purchase that equipment that would become theirs, that they would then maintain.
Yes. What I've shared with them is that Ron will develop an MOU that commissioners will enter into with their managing entities. Some are township boards, some are town councils. One is an independent not-for-profit.
Right.
That the equipment through this process would become theirs. They would be responsible for the maintenance and the upkeep, meaning they needed to start budgeting for battery replacement and also unit replacement. That, you know, in 5 years, when the radio doesn't work for some reason, it's not that they bring it back and hand it to Matthew and he gives them another radio. And there's enough advance notice for them to start planning in their budgets to replace a battery.
Okay.
What kind of money are we talking about if, say, we were to underwrite 75% of the small towns that can't afford the 800 technology?
Well, you are underwriting because law enforcement moving to the encryption radio, I think you just spend money out of your opioid to finish off purchasing for small town law enforcement. Reed EMS already operates on 800, and so the only thing left is fire.
Volunteer fire.
And this project is getting us there. It doesn't mean we're going to put a mobile radio in every fire truck because there's not the money for that. Interestingly, most of the departments are not interested in having mobiles in every piece of apparatus. They're leaning more towards a seat count, that they have portables for every seat in an apparatus that gives them communications on scene. And so it doesn't mean we have to buy an equal number of mobiles for every piece of apparatus, which allows us to put more towards portables. So, Ron, I wanted to correct one thing I said, that the one thing that's not on the state's QPA are the unication pagers. It's the dual band pagers and firefighters. That's not on the state's QPA, and we have a dealer here locally, and it's a couple of other dealers in Indiana that supply those. And I think we need to look at those and what the cost projection would be to decide if we need to go to RFP for those based on cost, or can we sole source those based on functionality of those pagers on the system?
Well, that's the question. I mean, you can't engineer it to eliminate competition, but if you engineer it neutrally and then you have a sole supplier, then that's a special purchase.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Now you took longer than I did.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Thanks, Barry.
thanks a lot for coming to us today. We really appreciate meeting you and
Thank
look
you.
forward to working with you.
Likewise.
Thanks. Okay, Matthew.
Yeah.
We now have a report, a survey that we need to put together for EMS, and you have a copy of that. You've had a few days to look at that.
Yes.
Do you want to share with us your initial thoughts on how we
Well,
should
it's
approach
the state, or the survey that the state put out is much more involved than what they had kind of advertised it was going to be. So we certainly are going to have to engage our EMS partners in the county to assist us in filling out that survey. I've actually already reached out to the contact at the state level for that survey. I have some clarifying questions on whether or not it involves our private EMS services operating within the county and the private side of like Reed Hospital. You know, when we go and ask them to provide us with their funding source, which is one of the questions, are we to include their private transport side, or are we to be looking at their 911 side? And do they distinguish the two? And will they even be able to carve that out of their business model? You know, those are questions we have to rely on them to provide. And again, they're a private entity, so we're basing it, I guess, hopefully off the goodness of their heart that they're willing to participate in this survey, because I don't know that we could force them, you know, to provide some of those answers. So. But when it comes to asking for response times and whether or not townships are covered by ALS or BLS, I can answer all of those, no problems. Just running a couple reports. So that part's not an issue. But they wanted, you know,
They're all
specific.
covered by ALS.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And so those questions are easy, but they wanted the number of paramedics that were hired by each entity, or advanced EMTs versus basic EMTs, and I of course don't have those numbers. So
Okay, but you're working on that. Is there anything you need from us to?
Not right now, as long as if she doesn't answer me from the state level, I may have to have you help me prod to get some clarifying answers, just so we know what direction. I want to get them good information, so it only benefits them if they let us know kind of what direction they want to go.
Now, I printed up the statute, House and Rule Act 1302, just because I couldn't believe how vague it was by trying to read it on the screen. And after I printed it up, I found it to be even more vague in hard copy.
Right.
Well, it was an amazing delegation of responsibility without any guidelines given. And I mean, I don't know how you're supposed to know how a private entity employs people and what their status of employment is if it's not a public document.
And like Reed, we know Reed goes to Fayette County. I mean, that needs clarification. I'm sure that's one of the clarifying questions you have for your contact.
It was, and I gave that very example that they use their private trucks to back up 911 calls, and how was I supposed to measure that based on what they were asking?
And just how much information do we have to get from the red lines of the world regarding the non-transport? And how cooperative would we really expect them to get regarding their non-emergency runs? And you know, it is so extremely vague. I can't believe Dr. Barrett was consulted very heavily on the writing of this House Enrolled Act. But I mean, if we need some political intervention to try to explain just what they were thinking, because ultimately this is going to have to be clarified in future legislative sessions.
I think we make a good faith effort to gather as much information as we can.
I didn't lose any sleep once you sent it to me, because that was how I had to come to peace with it. That I was going to do the best I could, and that was going to have to work. So
I think that makes sense, and
yeah,
we'll get the information we can.
I have not reached out to the EMS entities yet. I was hoping that I would hear from the state in the next day or two.
Good idea.
But then I'll need to be reaching out to them probably next week to see if they're willing to work with us giving them a deadline of maybe July 1st, so we have time then to present it to the state by the 15th, I believe it
15th
is.
of July is when it's due.
Yes.
Okay.
Fast turnaround.
You know, keep us informed.
Certainly.
If you have issues where you think it might be helpful for a commissioner to intervene, where we can do that. So,
Perfect. Okay.
all right.
Good deal.
Anything else?
Do you have time for one thing, very quick? I know I'm on Mike's time. I have a request to hire to take before you.
Mike is a team player.
He is a team player, and I greatly appreciate playing on his team. And I knew this wouldn't take long. It is. I received notice that one of our full-time dispatchers has the intention to is going to resign at the end of the month. So I am asking you ahead of time, but I did write on that paper that it's not effective until June 28th.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get the ball and keep the ball rolling and stay ahead of it, so I don't have a lag and we can bring somebody in
Do we
right
have-
when that.
And you have
So
a
it's a
list.
budgeted position. I'm sorry.
You have a list now, don't you?
I do have a hiring list that's still good till the fall.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Move for approval.
We have a motion. Do I have a second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to get behind the
Motion
ball
carries.
now that you have been fully staffed.
I have been, yeah, I've been very fortunate.
That
All
wasn't any of
Nothing
your
else.
Thank you.
new hires. Was that a new hire that is moving on or
No, she's been with us for quite some time.
quite some time? So that happens, doesn't it?
It does.
Michael, we're ready for you. Thank you very much, Matthew.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Aaron, have a nice day. Thanks for coming in to see us.
So I guess first of all, I'm coming to you today with some bids, but we had a bid opening for community crossings back on May 22nd. So we received the bids, we were gonna take them under advisement, bring them back to you, get them passed through. We had everything, but we did not have a bidder for the 12 limestone for Guard Jackson Road. So I guess I was an idiot and called the state and asked them how we could go forward. You know, can we go off of our yearly bid? How do we do that? They started looking in it and they didn't like the way we bid it at all, or I bid it. So saying that, you need to reject all the bids that we opened on May 22nd. And then I've got documents to rebid the project. I've sent them off to the state to get their approval, blessing. It's the same way we've bid it in the past.
What didn't they like about it?
Because I've got a paving project and a ceiling project. We're doing all the work ourselves, so it's just for material.
Right.
But they still want it separated out. They don't want the paving, even though it was separated out in the bid the way I had it written, that wasn't satisfied to them. And basically they told me we were going to throw the whole project out and just you reapply for community crossings next year and we'll relook at it. But I got them re-talked into, no, we're going to redo it this way. And so I've talked to the contractors. I don't understand it. Part of it is on the ceiling part of it, we have 11s, we've got 11Bs and we had 12s. They want one supplier for the stone and gravel to bid, and you got to accept that bid, even though you have a supplier for the liquid asphalt that can't produce the stone. That's all right for them just to do the liquid asphalt. But the stone supplier, so IMI does 11Bs, US Ag does 11s, Barrett does 12s. Barrett didn't want to bid it, and the reason why they didn't bid it is because we're only getting 120 tons off of them, and they didn't want to go do a bid bond and everything else when they've already done that for our annual bid, even though it's a state thing. So I've got it worked out. Next year, when we do this, I'm going to separate out. So I'll put a contract in for, because we do it that way for the east side. So if we're on the east side of the county, we can use this supplier, west side, use this supplier, kind of spread things out. The way we're going to do it now, we're going to have one gravel bid, which I don't agree with how the state's separating it out, even though they let some people separate it out, but not others. But that's a fight I don't think is worth fighting the state over because they're the state per se. So I've talked to the suppliers. We're going to put it out for bid. I'm going to have one bidder that can do all all the stone and gravel both.
Okay.
So then that'll satisfy what the state wants to do. Next year, then I'll put in a contract for things we do on the east side of the county, things we do on the west side. We'll have different ones. We'll bid them differently, and then that way, state should be satisfied.
Okay.
So it's a learning process, but we've done this in the years past, and they've never said a word. So
So we need a motion to reject
reject the
previous
bids from May 22nd.
22nd, and then another motion to.
And then I've got bids for you to sign to put out for bid. This will go out for bid for 2 different projects. One will be for the paving, and these are just for material. We're doing all the work ourselves. So one will be for the asphalt for the paving project, and then one will be for the ceiling project.
Okay. Can we
Okay,
get a
I move
motion
that
to-
we reject the bids
from
from May 22nd that we agreed to take under advisement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I have a question. Will that bidder that had a confusion about the time of day for the deadline to bid, will that allow them to get into this mix, or was that another problem?
Well, they just got kicked out. You just kicked them out.
We just rejected
But,
all.
but.
They wouldn't.
They-
I did.
They didn't have to bid the first round. This is
No, we
only
would have
voted.
accepted them. I talked to Ron Cross about it. We would have accepted them. Somehow there was a what was sent to Bobby and what was sent to the bidders had 2 different times on them. Another mistake that happened by mistake, I guess. So
Oh, but it wasn't that bidder's fault?
no, because what the paper that I
Okay.
sent him had 1 o'clock as a bid opening, but what Bobby had and advertised said 11 o'clock. So somewhere something got changed in between from
So
what
maybe
was
it's
sent
a
to me
good
to send out to
thing
the bidders and
We'll
what was sent
have
to
a
Bobby.
more bountiful bidding,
It was another learning experience that we will make sure we double check that time.
so maybe it's a
Ron,
good
have
thing
you
the
seen
state
these?
jumped in.
You want to take a quick look?
I didn't notice it.
You want to give Ron a minute to look at that, and we'll go to
Yep.
Brandon while he's doing that. Thanks. Hi, Brandon.
How's it going?
So far, so good. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good.
You have good news for us?
Yes,
Did you find $4 million?
not yet.
Can we drill for oil on the county right away?
Well, there's going to be
This will be
there's
for Rob.
going to be a tower in the location where there was oil available.
Maybe while they're drilling for those guide wire
Yeah.
posts, they'll find the oil.
Contractor and also their maintenance bond for 1 year. If you wanted to look at that real quick. We're ready to do a final acceptance on one system.
Okay, what are we looking at here, Brandon?
Okay, the first thing in your packet right now is the final acceptance of Bridge 160 on Bridge Church Road. The contractor has completed all the work according to our contract. They provided us with their final affidavit and maintenance bond for 1 year as required. That's what I just presented to Ron to review real quick, and if he's okay with that, then I would recommend for final acceptance, which requires all 3 signatures from
And this is, we're under budget by $2,088.67.
We are.
All
We're
right.
under
Hey, the
budget.
You
bridge
found
fund,
$2,000,
thank you.
Right.
$4 million.
We only need, $3,998,000.
That's right.
Change.
We're getting there.
Inch by
I move
inch.
to accept
Chip away at it.
the final documents.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second. I didn't hear the motion, I'm sorry.
The motion is to
To
accept
accept the final documentation.
documents. on
Second.
Is that an
Bridge
okay bid?
160.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That's the first, that's the
First
first sheet. And then, is there just one copy of each of these, or?
Yeah, just one copy for that.
Okay. Today is 6/5. Okay, what's,
The next two items in your packet is change order 1 and change order 2. This is for Bridge 701 on South G Street. As you recall, they did some tree clearing prior to the official notice to proceed, just so we could get the trees felled before April 1st for the Indiana bat law. So there is going to be a credit on our contract for I think roughly
$2,161.40.
Correct, yes. So at the end, we'll get the credit, but then that will probably be just sent to the contractor directly from us. So
We have to pay for it, it's just not a reimbursement.
not through
cost.
NDOT. Correct.
Temporary credit, so
Yes. And change order 1 is for the reduction, and change order 2, Milestone wanted a little bit more in-depth description of change order 1, so that's why there's 2 change orders. Change order 2 is just an updated description of what they're doing.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve change order number 1. Can we combine those? And number 2,
I think so.
Yeah, it just requires the president to sign.
and with authorization of the president to sign.
Okay.
second,
We have a motion, we have a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Now, my signature goes on the top line there,
Right above
above
mine,
you.
yes.
Okay. Okay.
And I do have an update on this project. They do have the bridge closed now to start doing the work on top of the deck. Getting ready
G
for
Street you're talking about?
G Street, that's correct. The hydro demolition of the sidewalk and the driving lanes in preparation for the overlay.
You're still thinking it'll be done before school starts again in the fall?
Yes, they're contractually bound to August, I believe, the 5th to get the work done on top. And then they've got a little bit more time to do the patching underneath. We did have a progress meeting yesterday, and they are concerned about the patching quantities underneath. On both of the arches back in the 90s when we did our rehabilitation then, they put a 5-inch thick collar around the top of the arch and the sides. So when they were going through and sounding the concrete for delamination and spalling, they have determined that this 5-inch collar is kind of creating a delamination sound, but they still think that it's good concrete. It's just, the old arch, and then you've got this new 5-inch collar around it that's kind of playing with some patching quantities. So we have advised the contractor and their sub to focus on the areas where there's exposed steel and check those areas, because they're concerned that there could be a potential cost overrun on the patching, more patching than what was originally designed for. So we are looking at getting daily quantities from the contractor and their sub to make sure that we can project any cost overruns, if any, ahead of time, which again would be 100% on the county to pay for it if there are any overruns. So we're watching that very closely to make sure there's not going to be any overruns, and if there is, keep it to a minimum.
So they think it's possible that that newer 5-inch collar is delaminated. It's going to have to be replaced.
Well, they think it's okay, but because of the cold joint between the original arch and the 5-inch, it's in some areas it's creating that delamination sound, but they still believe that it is good concrete. So they want them to focus on the exposed steel areas where it's very visual that, hey, this needs to be patched and reinforced.
So how do we ultimately determine whether it's good concrete or not?
There's different sounding techniques that they use.
So is somebody going to do that?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
The subcontractors doing that. They're marking the areas, and then we, of course, our inspection team and designer are closely watching those quantities as well. So,
Brandon, I can't help but wonder what kept them from detecting that until now.
I think the designer was focusing on the areas where the exposed steel was, but of course our subcontractor is doing a sounding on the entire structure just to make sure there's not areas that may fit this. And that's what they found initially. So we had a progress meeting yesterday to determine, still sound it and make sure, but let's focus on the areas of exposed steel first.
So if this causes a change order that is somewhat costly, do you think the additional cost would be negotiable since they discovered it so late in the game?
I talked with the NDOT project manager, and he is still leaning on, there's no additional money at this time, which would be 100% county responsibility. But that's a conversation above him if it comes to it. A couple things that, potential cost savings that we could look at would be that protection fence, eliminating it if it's a desire to do so. And then another thing they brought up yesterday was in the access paths to get underneath of the bridge, they installed stone to get their equipment down there. If Indian American Water or the city of Richmond would like those stone paths to stay in place, then we would not have to pay the contractor to remove them, and they just use it for their access as well. So I was going to, if it's okay with you guys, I was going to reach out to Richmond and Indian American Water to see if they want that stone to stay in place.
Absolutely, sure.
Any
That
way
could
you
be a
can
cost
save money.
savings for us.
That
Yeah.
doesn't hurt us in any way aesthetically or
No,
any
because
structurally.
they have been using those access paths, and it's just been dirt paths for them. So
Keeps
it
the
would kind of
weeds
help
down.
help them if they so choose.
Anything we can do to reduce that, but it wasn't our fault they didn't bid it properly if it is going to cause an expensive change order.
Right. So
Is
that's
my position.
right. And the other thing that they had mentioned about the exposed steel is it's a number 8 bar, which is 1 inch thick, and because of the curvature of the arch and the bending of the steel could be deeper inside the concrete than, say there's a 2 inch clearance and maybe the steel is 4 inches back. So anytime they go a depth of more than 6 inches, there's a multiplier to the current bid. So anything above 6 inches deep would be more expensive than
Well, their
anything
due
less,
diligence could have taught them that in the bidding process.
Right. So, and some of that you may not have known until you start chipping away the laminations until you get to sound concrete, and now you realize that it's 6 inches instead of 4 inches like they originally planned. So it's just a part of the process of removing the unsound concrete too. So, but we are going to watch that closely, get daily updates. That way everybody agrees on the quantities moving forward, and that will help us project if there's going to be an overrun. So,
Keep us informed.
okay, we'll do. That's all
That
I've got.
protective fencing, when you step it down to that cheaper alternative, you really are giving up a lot.
Yeah, so. And I know that they're in the process of submitting shop drawings for that. So if that is a serious discussion that you guys want to have, we probably would need to have that sooner than later, so we don't get into fabricating in that route. But again, it's up to you guys if you want to see it that way. But
Let me just ask you, because there are 3 bridges in the downtown that cross the gorge. The other 2 don't have protective fencing. What prompted the decision to include protective fencing on this
I think
on G Street?
I think it was a push by the school, since it was so close to the school that
And it's
A lot of foot
it's the one
traffic.
that's mostly used by students walking to school.
correct. So I think that was the big push for it initially when we applied for the project in 2019, I believe. So
Okay.
and the historical data.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions for Brandon?
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day. Ron, have you had enough time to review what Mike brought in?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
We need a motion then to, I move that we issue bids for this
Notice
asphalt
receipt of
process.
bid.
I don't think we've had the motion to put a call out for these bids on the asphalt project.
I don't believe so, no. That's what we're,
So
so there's, one of them is asphalt, one of
Yeah.
them is stone.
Still,
One of them's for sealing, one of them is for paving.
okay, both ceiling and
Both
paving
materials,
bids
but
that
different
be
projects.
issued.
Okay. So
So
there's a
moved.
motion to approve the, putting
And
out the
there's-
bids for sealing and paving.
I'll second
And there's a second to that motion.
There's 2 places to sign.
Two
Both
places to
have
sign.
the yellow.
And
Put the yellow tab in there.
and it's all three of us,
Yes.
okay? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Give us a
While we're
minutes
signing,
here to-
I had a visit by a farmer. He left the treasurer's office after paying his taxes on May 9th or 10th. He had a property tax bill of $160,000, and he was so motivated after paying that rather large property tax bill that he got in his truck and drove to my back door and came in my kitchen and had something to talk about, which was Sugar Grove Road. He feels that Sugar Grove Road has just, it's such a busy major rural collector and has a lot of traffic, and is wanting to know what is going to be done to improve Sugar Grove Road, because he kind of feels like he's donated quite a lot to Wayne County government and wonders what he's getting for his money. And he buys a lot of fuel, by the way. He's got semis and, that are not tax exempt because they're off-road.
I believe Sugar Grove Road was patch paved this year, and I believe that patch pavement has been done. I think it's slated to be strip sealed. I don't think it's in the process of being paved. It's not in horrible shape. It's got some rub. It's got some of those reflective type cracks as you kind of drive those roads. If you've gone down Jacksonburg Road, south of 38 especially, you kind of hit those. If you would repave over that and put an inch and a half of surface over Jacksonburg Road, they will come back. So
Yeah,
you really have
Sugar
to dig
Grove,
those
that's
out.
not Sugar Grove's probably problem. We're talking north of 38 to the economy.
Yeah. But I don't think it's in horrible shape. Is it fancy blacktop? No, but I think it meets our standards and
So I can tell him what's going to be done this year.
patch paving and strip sealing, I believe. I know the patch paving's been done because I've seen that. I believe strip sealing is on the list to do too.
Is there a particular section that he's talking about between
Um,
38 and 35? or-
He lives on north, just south of the economy.
Can you check what are the Pacer scores for that those sections?
If you wouldn't mind, because he's one of our best customers.
Mhm.
He's a pretty big customer.
You got 4 places to sign in there.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Certainly gets your attention when a taxpayer comes to your kitchen.
Hi, Becca. Anything else, Mike?
Nope, thank
That's
you.
it. Just waiting for the signatures. Okay. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
So far, so good.
I've filled out contracts, so no longer templates.
Okay. Okay. Good.
That's why I thought if I just get
Here. So these are each the contracts for the groups that the board approved
Yes. Yeah.
for Health First Indiana funding.
So there's 6 different contracts. 3 of them are Health First Indiana funding, 2 of them are school liaison funding, and 1 of them safety pen funding. So we
Okay,
kind of
that's
decided to
right.
split
They
it up a
talked
little bit.
all of those. You have off the top of your head, the total funding then for Health First Indiana from these contracts?
I'm not sure if I had it broken down that way or not. The total altogether is $514,798,000. But let's see here. It's gonna be about 240,000 that's not. So it's about half and half, maybe a little bit over
Thank
half.
you,
that's
appreciate
going
you
into Health
saying
First
you
Indiana.
could hear me.
Okay.
He's a good guy.
If you want to take a look at these individually, what is it for, who's
Sure,
it
yeah,
with,
absolutely.
and what is the KPI that's involved here? Because this is a significant step for us. This is really the first time you've been through this process, right? And there's more funding available. The way you decided to do the contracts, because it took 6 months to get things organized, is these are essentially 18-month
Yes.
contracts, right? So year 1 and year 2 of Health First funding, which for year 1 you got 800-ish thousand,
Yeah,
and for year 2 it's going to be twice that
yeah,
much.
1.5.
Okay, so some of the money was allocated to contractual arrangements, and at this point, these contracts will be for significantly less than is available for those contractual.
Right.
So we still got some contracting to do,
Right.
or revisions to the overall plan, right? And so-
Yeah, so this year I had about 356,000 set aside, and next year I had about 860,000 set aside. So we're significantly under that total
Okay.
between both years with 18 months of total.
Okay.
And just to give you a little bit of background on the 2 other funding sources, so the school liaison grant is it's a little bit different than most. It's not reimbursable. It's a quarterly lump sum that we receive as long as we meet our deliverables. And so it's about $82,500 that we receive every quarter. And so we have been meeting the deliverables, and we have not been spending all the money. So the program ends at the end of June. We're gonna have quite a bit of money left over. So I kind of talked to the state about subgranting out that fund, and they said absolutely no problem. So that one's all set. The safety pin one though is an ongoing program, so it's still active. It's gonna be over in February of 2026. And what they're working on right now is a contract revision, so to allow us to do subgranting. So it'll be 2 months beyond the life of these contracts that will have that funding available. And it's 263,000. We're talking about subgranting 100,000 of it, so less than half of it.
Okay.
So the first one that you guys have is Neighborhood Health Center, and they're asking for 188,557, or the board approved that amount. And their plan is to implement a blood pressure control program with a nurse and a care coordinator. And the idea is that they eliminate the barrier of transportation. And so they're taking people to their houses, or they're doing a lot more communication with people in order to make sure that they're checking their blood pressure and doing different things to try to reduce the hypertension rate that we have in Wayne County.
And is that just with their patients, or are we broadening that and going out into the community too?
So we asked that at the board meeting, and the idea is that it'll broaden a little bit, but that's not specifically the aim of the program.
So primarily focused at their patients that come to this
Yeah.
clinic.
What
And
question?
what about trauma to injury prevention?
Yeah, so this one, let's see, where's the easiest way to check it out? I have, on page 9 of this one, it's the easiest place to check out which core services this one fulfills.
Okay.
And so between reviewing their proposal, which was about 20 pages long, and reviewing kind of the details of the KPIs, we felt that they were going to be addressing chronic disease prevention, access and linkage to clinical care, and trauma and injury prevention. The trauma and injury prevention piece is because they have kind of a focus on connecting people with mental health and suicide prevention. And then the chronic disease prevention is obviously kind of preventing some of those hypertension-related diseases. And then access and linkage to clinical care is that transportation piece and making the care kind of come to them.
Okay.
So it all comes back to transportation? It's all linked to transportation?
It's a big part of their proposal, yeah.
Transportation in the sense of they are going out to the patient
Right.
rather than the patient having to get to the
Yes.
clinic.
So mobile healthcare.
Mhm.
I mean, when I hear transportation, I picture the patient being transported, and when I hear mobile, I sort of see
I
the
see, yeah.
healthcare provider going to the patient.
Yeah.
Okay. And of that 188,000, how much of it is like mobile healthcare?
So, they have broken down,
Is that in the details?
yeah, so if you go to page 14, you
Okay.
can see what their budget is. And I can break that down a little more specifically.
Yeah, because when I saw these big lump sums in the, it couldn't help but wonder.
So they were planning on 152,000 about in personnel and then 36,000 in fringe. And what that's going to fund is a care coordination nurse and a community health worker or patient advocate, and then their fringe. So those people are going to be the people that are going out and working with those individuals.
And the neighborhood health center is the health center down here at 10th and South Bay?
10th and South End.
Okay. Well, those are all worthy public health needs.
Yeah, I think it's exciting.
And so today you're looking for commissioner's approval of these contracts. Ron, I don't see a place to sign off
I
on
think it's page 7.
these. Is there? Okay.
And what kind of time frame are we under on these?
So they are retroactive to June 1st. The board.
But when do we need to enact it? Because I really would like, we just got these, review them and read them, make sure.
So the contract allows us 30 days for reimbursement beyond their invoicing. So that's 60 days really from this point. So I feel like you've got time to kind of look it over if you
Make
want
sure
to.
Ron
Yeah.
goes over them.
Come back next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, get Ron's seal of approval on them.
Okay. Have you seen these before, Ron? Or you just
I saw the template, I have not seen the contract.
Okay. Okay.
And I'm not seeing the signature page on any of these.
I think it's third page.
Page 7.
Seven.
No wonder I'm looking at the end of that contract.
But you're
They
just.
have attachments on them for
So
time
this would
with
just
dinner.
be the president signing these, or just one
Yeah.
line item? Okay. So why don't you review each of them
Sure.
with us? We'll take them under advisement, come back next week. Does that give us enough time to
That's fine with me.
take a look at them?
Sure, I just feel always better after Ron's eyes have been on any agreement. And this is a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
And just the beginning, isn't that exciting?
It is very exciting.
And this was the outgrowth from a public-private cooperative effort of the group that came together over quite a period of time, right?
Right, yes, this has been a long time working together and kind of coming together, and finally, I feel like we've wrapped it up in a package and put a bow on it, and we're about to deliver the package, so.
Was it a pretty amiable reaching of agreement,
Yeah, I think
consensus?
so.
And
They only had 2 meetings to come to their consensus, and really the only two that weren't funded, they felt like really didn't align with the core services, so it was a fairly easy decision for the most part, I think, so.
Okay.
So the second one that you have is Bridges for Life, and they are determining to fund them at $27,880, and that is for the pay for a peer recovery coach. And what their project is that they're sort of trying to extend or expand is a project where they have people live in a home that they kind of work and develop sort of contractor or construction skills as they're recovering from substance use disorder. And so they are, let me get to the right page here. We felt that they were servicing chronic disease prevention, access and linkage to clinical care, trauma and injury prevention, and fatality prevention initiatives.
So I'm assuming this is like a little bit of an extension of the program that we funded.
Yeah, in this case, I think they asked for multiple peer recovery coaches, and the discussion at the board level was, let's start with one, see how they do, and let's not get into the construction housing side of
Yeah,
that, because there are
that's totally different.
other funding, right? So this is, I think they originally asked for 2 or 3.
350, there was a large capital
And
request.
so, well, the capital, but they asked for 2 or 3
Oh, yes,
peer
I'm sorry,
recovery
yeah.
coaches. And the board suggested, let's start with 1. And as the program develops, we can determine whether we can fund more than that, whether it's sustainable and so on. So I think it's a starting point.
Yeah, so this will really fund their core function as an agency that they've been doing for
Correct.
a
And
few
it's
years.
Bridges for Life as opposed
Right.
to the building together side of
The
it.
subsidiary of Bridges.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, number 3.
Alright, number 3 is Reed. And they were in line with 6 of the 7 core services that we've kind of requested assistance with. So that is on page 9. It's chronic disease prevention, access and linkage to clinical care, trauma and injury prevention, tobacco and vaping prevention and cessation, maternal and child health, and school health. And their funding is going to be used for navigators, and then a lot of programming, supplies, education materials, and things like that to kind of get out in the community, do some education awareness with lots of different programming, which is really exciting. There is, if you're interested, a description of their programming, which starts on page 8. They kind of undersold themselves, I feel like, originally, because they only claimed 3 of the core services, and we decided they actually meant 6 of the core services.
I think they meet a lot of them. I'll tell you, my concern with this one is that the board opted to not approve a level of funding for the supervisor of these positions.
Yeah.
I think that's a critical oversight. My idea is that the commissioners should recommend putting that back in. You know, to
Yeah.
me, it doesn't help to have these positions funded if we're not funding the supervision to make sure they're meeting the objectives and really moving the needle on these KPIs.
Yeah.
Part of that has to do with supervision, and it wasn't that much money.
Let's just say, what was the
It's not in
increase
the
of-
budget
It was
now, but
about 21.
they wanted to pay
21,000.
21,000, yeah.
so
Well, Reed's Community Benefit Fund has $21,000.
it does. However, they do a lot of other things with those dollars, and here we're looking at approving a couple $100,000 out of $1 million that needs to be out
Yeah,
there
it's
meeting those
238,000, it's
KPIs.
21,000.
I think it's an important add.
Well, there's no way they would have, $132,000 in personnel expense without a supervisor.
They do.
They do.
It was taken out. Their ask was
Well,
for more than
Reed would
this.
find a way to have a supervisor for all those people.
The board did
If-
ask me to relay to you that that was an option, to add that back in, or that they are open to that, so.
I really
I
think
think
we
it's a
should.
necessity. Yeah.
Well, I think Reed can afford it, is my point.
Well,
I mean, they don't pay taxes. This is my little speaking up for the legislature to enact a pilot program for nonprofits. I mean, they're a behemoth.
they are a necessary component of the healthcare program for Wayne County and Eastern Indiana in general.
Well, absolutely,
And it's
they're.
important, I think, you look at what we're doing here. It's not like you're contracting for services. It's you're offering an award based upon the intention to provide deliverables that meet the KPIs. How they do that, it's kind of like a construction. You're contracting for the product. You don't tell the contractor how he does his job, or you don't get involved in meetings. So, you know, if they're gonna have to deliver whether they have supervision built into it or not. I have to believe
If they accept it.
If
I
they
mean, we're
accept
micromanaging how they deliver their services. I mean, exactly what you said, you know, we can't tell them really how to deliver their services, I think, by telling them that they have to hire certain personnel structure.
They asked to do that. That's
That
what
was
they
in their
asked to
proposal.
have
That was in their
funded
proposal, so they may
proposal.
reject this proposal based on not having that supervision in there.
And so the board's recommendation was do this, meet all the objectives,
But don't have a
but
supervisor.
don't have any money to pay for
So,
supervision for the employees.
in some respects, it's just the opposite, Mary. And we are telling them how
How
to
to
do
do
their
it.
job, when in
But-
fact they have told us what they think are the components necessary to have done it.
Okay,
to
so
meet the
I,
KPIs.
you know, not being in these board meetings, I didn't know which way it went. It's not like they suggested, well, we can live without a supervisor, we just don't wanna cut all our areas of service.
No,
I mean,
we
one
did
of
not
the
say
other
that.
options would be to cut back on the deliverables.
I wasn't at the meeting either.
I'd rather cut back on deliverables.
Then cut back on supervision, in my opinion.
If it's helpful to know, it says that it designates 0.15 per FTE for this work too, so that it is kind of taking maybe some of what she's doing now and reallocating the time to working on this. That's
I mean,
helpful
there's
to
no
know.
way they would have individuals working at Reed without any supervision. I mean, there is just no way that's ever
Well,
gonna
that's why
happen
they
in a
asked for it.
hospital.
Exactly.
They asked for it, that's why they need it.
They asked
Which is
for
why
it.
it makes
And the
it,
health board
it
decided to take
makes
it
it
out.
appear unrealistic then to fund a project that doesn't include the component identified for supervision.
They already have, my point is, these people are not gonna be 100% funded by Health First Indiana.
Yes, they
What they're
are.
gonna do is spend like 22
No.
hours a week on Health First Indiana projects, right? Am I right, Becca?
So they are, one FTE for 2 community health workers, so we're paying 100% of these 2 employees' salaries for 18 months.
What was that again? One person is FTE?
We're paying 2 full FTEs for 18 months. So 100% of their salaries for 18 months.
Okay.
For the 2 employees, not the
But
supervisors.
not for a
Yeah,
supervisor.
15% of the supervisor's pay for 18 months.
Ooh, 15% is 21,000?
For 18 months, yeah.
For a year and a half, not for.
Oh, a year and a half.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's a pretty big job.
But it also includes all the fringes.
No, the fringes are separate here. 21,000 is, includes
Is
fringes?
this,
The
I'm
fringe
sorry,
is separate.
that's the salary. That's 15% of the salary for 18 months.
And it doesn't, we don't have to add fringes on top of that? Because fringes are like
Yes.
30%.
You do. It would. they
So it'd
ask
be
for
21,000 plus another
plus
30,
15% of the fringes.
27% or something.
Yeah, 23.4 is what they have here.
23.4% of 20,000, so.
Well, food for thought,
Right.
we're not voting on it right now anyway,
No.
so.
Well, I would just, so there's 2 FTE and a little part-time too?
And 0.15 for the supervisor.
0.15, one half of one part-time.
15%.
15%.
Oh, 15% of them.
Less than a fifth of an employee. Here, I can show you.
And
I'm happy to send you guys
left
the proposals.
15%, that part-time would be the supervisor?
See, so instead of 1 FTE, see how this is 2 of 1 full FTE?
Okay, so the 15% would be the part-time supervisor.
Right.
Well, it would be a full-time employee, but for this purpose, it would take up
Just
15%
15% of a
their
supervisor,
time.
right.
Correct.
So I figured, see, I didn't understand how that was all gonna work. I figured they would have these individuals who were expert in things like trauma and injury prevention, like the people that used to come here and talk to us about things like that. And that they would be working out in the community. Wait a minute, this is the program that they discontinued. isn't it? When Reed cut back on their community outreach.
So they're doing lots of different things. They're doing tobacco prevention and cessation. They're going to do kind of some nutrition things. They're going to do.
That's that whole program they killed about a year ago. Remember that? That community outreach on preventative health care.
They're doing chronic disease prevention education, cultural competency, understanding and respecting cultural beliefs related to healthcare, clinics, support groups, social services. So I think
Yeah.
the community health workers are kind of the worker bees. The 0.15 FTE supervisor is more just the person that keeps everything organized. They're going to be doing the reporting, the financial management.
Reed used to have that department, and they eliminated it about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
So now they're going to have the taxpayer reignite that department.
These meet the key performance indicators that have been put in place by the state that we need to meet in order to receive funding from the Health First Indiana.
So it's either Reed do it or we do it or somebody has to do it, and we just chose that
Yeah,
contractual.
Which is,
Key performance indicators, I guess I'm just really disappointed. I don't see Wayne County's key performance shortfalls mentioned in here anywhere.
So our request for proposal included 7 core service areas that we needed help in. Our key performance indicators aren't actually due until December of this year. So we don't have our specifics. That's kind of in our contracting relationship. We developed those together. Does that make sense?
So the state has told us what our KPIs,
What the state level
What the
KPIs
what the
are.
state KPIs are.
correct.
Because Wayne County's serious health problems are very well known to us, and they don't show up on the state's KPIs. I mean, our serious of all problems is premature death. And I don't see anything in these KPIs that addresses premature death. Morbid obesity, mother and child morbidity.
So maternal and child health.
Maternal and child health is in here, that's true.
And
but-
trauma and injury prevention is kind of encompassing.
Trauma, but that's not really the pinpoint of what is causing our premature deaths. If you look at the death certificates, that is not really the cause of Wayne County's premature deaths.
Okay.
I hope before our KPIs for Wayne County get turned into the state, we really address what is causing such a high number of young people on disability. What is causing people to die under the age of 65? What is causing so many people even much younger than that? Why do we have a higher maternal and infant mortality rate than the state when already Indiana has an extraordinarily high infant and mother mortality rate? I did not realize that the KPIs for Indiana just do not reflect what our severe health problems are.
I will say we did just find out that our number 1 cause of death in Wayne County, this is from the Division of Trauma and Injury Prevention, our number 1 cause of death in Wayne County is intentional and unintentional poisoning of any kind, drug overdose or not. And that is one of the new KPIs that's going to be on our county scorecard. We should be able to see that within the next week or so.
Okay, let's
Okay.
move on. We're
Okay.
But
taking these
I
under
don't know.
advisement. So
Yeah.
next one is Boys and Girls Club.
And I agree that people have to be supervised. But would we
Absolutely.
have to take 21,000 plus another quarter of that? 26,000, would we have to take 26,000 away from somebody else?
No, we
We're
have,
not taking it away from anybody
yeah,
else.
we've
We
only used
have
about a third of what
more
we have
money to
available.
spend.
Oh, well, no brainer. Why did the board not want to have a supervisor?
I don't know. I'm not on the board.
Oh, but you seem to be on.
I was at the meeting. They notify all of us when they have meetings, and I attended. And I listened.
When you say
The next
board, you mean the
two.
health
The health
board?
board. The health board.
Okay, well, I usually go. I just didn't get the list.
The next two are from our school liaison fund that we have. By the time we get our final quarter stipend, I guess you could call it, we'll have about $460,000 in that fund. So you can see here we've got Boys and Girls Club. The board decided about $60,000, $59,995, and then Purdue Extension, $88,309. So we can start with Boys and Girls Club. They are going to be implementing programming across the entire county, covering every zip code in the county, and implementing nutrition, education programming, and physical activity programming. CATCH is a evidence-based child education programming, and they're doing their version of that programming across the entire county for ages, I believe it is K through 12.
And these are in their centers or not
Yes.
in the schools, right? They're in
No, in their centers.
the boy, okay.
Mhm.
Okay. And the last one is Birth to 5.
So Birth to 5 is doing home visiting, which is something that the state really wants to see with Health First Indiana, although we're not funding this with Health First Indiana. We can use the data that they report though with our Health First Indiana initiatives, KPIs, core services, etc. So we are hoping to fund this with our safety pin as long as we get approval of that sub-granting contract revision. And so what they're focusing on is maternal health during pregnancy and then kind of education and infant health post-pregnancy or after delivery. And they're focusing on things like smoking cessation, breastfeeding education, safe sleep. They're looking at like a bedside bassinet and just different things that they can implement that are really realistic. One of the things that Dr. Ryder, who's a retired pediatrician, mentioned was how he feels like they're really meeting people where they are and identifying the issues that maybe some other groups aren't identifying right now. So I thought that was kind of unique and really interesting. So a lot of their money is in supplies, which I think is probably necessary, but also in employees as well.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, they're great. You think it's,
I think it's a great first start.
this is wonderful. It's exciting. It really is.
Yeah.
I just hope that we can address our premature deaths really head on.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, the poisoning that's going on among young people is such a, all kinds of poisoning.
It's certainly on my radar.
How many of the core service areas did we not receive proposals on?
So we were able to check all 7 boxes that we requested proposals in, and the reason why we only put 7 in the proposals is because we have all the other areas covered with the staff that's over at the health department right now.
And so the staff doing it now will be funded then by the.
Either the county fund or the Health First Indiana fund in 2025. Is that what you're asking?
Right. So that'll be part of your budget proposal.
Yeah.
And so with the significant amount of Health First Indiana, I'm assuming you're going to submit a budget that just lists that under contractual, and then you're going to go back for another cycle of grant making, I'll call it, or contract.
Yeah, that was kind of something we talked about just recently with, well, Dr. Ryder and I talked about kind of how we're going to approach that because we do have such a substantial amount of money left over. I think it depends on what we make our county level KPIs and kind of how we're going to address that.
And so you'll take into account the KPIs addressed by these contracts and then have more of a focus on the ones that are not addressed yet or even specific areas within your KPI?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just surprising not to see substance abuse and addiction not a KPI.
I think that it's very general within the trauma and injury prevention sector, but I do think that in Wayne County it needs to be more specific for our county level KPIs. I 100% agree with you.
Well, this is really wonderful. You put a lot of work into this, and it's going to make a real difference to the health and well-being and happiness of our people.
So we will take these under advisement. Did you want to see the proposals that she's offered to send you a copy of the actual proposals from?
If it's not too much difficulty, no.
It's It's a stack of
It
three.
is, yeah, and I am able to send it all in one email, surprisingly.
That's fine. If you want to just want to send them an email.
Okay, do you want email or a paper copy?
Email's
Email's
fine.
Okay, alright, I can do that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We'll have you back next
Next
week.
week. Alright,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
While you're here, I just wanted to mention that as if we hadn't been bombarded with enough threats, the Indiana Department of Health just sent out an alert. I don't know if you're all on the IDOH alert thing, but there's a new threat. The new drug medetomidine has been detected in Marion County. And I'm so excited. Becca tells me that they're going to start testing residue in return syringes through the syringe program to see what is being detected in the syringes in Wayne County. But Marion County has detected this medetomidine that has started killing people in Chicago and the East Coast. It's a new threat. I made copies of that notice that just came from the IDOH today that I will make copies for tomorrow's drug-free Wayne County meeting, because a lot of people that deal with clients that are in addiction recovery right now, so I'll distribute that tomorrow because the symptoms are the same as an opioid overdose. Unfortunately, it's not an opioid, so
So the Narcan doesn't work.
Narcan doesn't do, but it's almost always a cocktail with an opioid. So it's a real
Thank you.
threat and deadly.
Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank
We'll be in touch.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
All right, thanks. Ron Cross is next on the agenda.
It wasn't sent to everybody, but Jeff and I received an email from county assessor indicating that he had a resignation of his member, one of his members on the Peterborough board that had the level 3 certification. She had lived in Fisher's area, I think.
I believe so.
We kind of brought her in, so to speak, and hired her. He has proposed that David Friedenberg, who was formerly in the office and on the Peterborough board, be appointed, and he hasn't indicated the duration of this appointment, but it's certainly to keep him functional, because there are 3-person boards, to replace Ms. Brawl. And the kicker is David, while he was a certified level 3 appraiser when he was active, has not, since he retired, kept up his certification. That being said, the statute does allow the appointing body, designating body, the right to waive that requirement. And he is asking that be done, and I reviewed the statute. The statute has not been changed. It does allow that waiver. And I don't know the duration of the intended term of David's reappointment, if you will, but it's the pleasure of this body as designated body whether it chooses to do
So we would be waiving the statute or the requirement of the level 3
certification.
But he worked in that office for 30 years.
And hasn't forgotten what he knows.
He did most of the commercial.
I was just making sure what
I
we're
think
actually,
yeah.
I have no problem with that.
That's what you're doing.
Do we have a motion to waive
I'll
the
make that motion.
requirement for level 3 assessor and to appoint,
To fill out
Allow
the
him.
remaining term.
allow the
Authorize
assessor
Jim to make that
to make that appointment
Make
of
that
Dave
appointment.
Freidenberg?
you make the appointment, but he has to
He has
present
to
it and assume he
nominate
will
him
accept.
to us.
Do we have reason to believe Dave would accept that appointment? Okay, second.
So we have a motion and a second to allow the assessor to waive that criteria and to nominate Dave Freidenberg as the replacement for the retiring or resigning member of the board. Motion is second. Any further discussion?
I'm just curious if it pays enough for him to get his level 3 renewed. Any idea what that pays?
It's on a meeting by meeting basis, I think a minimum of 2 hours each time they meet, and they might meet once, they might meet 20 times. So it's
I hope
impossible
it's
to know.
lucrative enough for him to get his level 3 back.
But we're waiving it, right? So
Yeah, we're
there's no
waiving that
requirement for him to get it back, right?
Correct.
Well,
Correct.
but this term will be up at some point, so.
If
They
you,
serve indefinitely, as I recall.
Oh, it is an indefinite appointment?
And I-
well,
It's like Supreme
it's-
Court?
I think there's a term,
But
but
it's automatic.
if there's not a replacement, that their appointment continues
Yeah,
until
you're right. I think it
replacement
reads
is
that
found.
there's a stated term, but that term extends until their successor has been duly appointed and qualified.
But if they don't attend the meetings, they don't get paid, is my understanding. So, they can quit anytime they want to.
Well,
Just by
that
not
I
showing
know
up.
is an issue because
Yeah.
the statute does not define how you would terminate a city member of the board. So it's a little.
Sort of
You have the
vague.
authority to appoint. You would think you'd have the implied authority to
Terminate.
terminate.
Apparently not.
When I looked.
So,
In
we
any
have,
event,
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Ron, what else have you got?
I don't remember when it was, May 8th, I think, maybe. We were presented with resolution 2024-013, authorizing transfer of certain properties to the city of Richmond, Indiana for their retransfer or reconveyance to Habitat for Humanity local chapter. And I think we withheld taking final action on that until Jeff had an opportunity, or someone had an opportunity to check with
Right.
city and Habitat to make sure they were interested in 2 properties that we had identified. It turns out they were interested in one but not the other. That being said, there was a second property that we always had on our list that was already in your name. I think it acquired it
Correct.
prior tax sale that failed to sell and was not titled to pass. That at 1011 North 15th, that property has been identified as one that the Housing Authority of the City of Richmond is interested in acquiring, but again, it requires that we convey through the vehicle of the City of Richmond. So the revised resolution 2024-13 identifies those 2 properties and also the 2 ultimate transferees, so that the city accepting that will have to do with its own counter resolution or comparable resolution, showing that they will in fact convey those properties. We are waiving any expense, at least that's the way that's drafted. If you wish to insert cost recoupment, I think we can usually in the area of $300 for title search and what have you.
Correct. And
And publication, so that's up to you, but I
the
prepared that
thinking in
from
the
that
past, as we have transferred money to the city, it has been at their request that they would like to have this property, and so they paid for
This-
those
I
costs.
think we initiated this.
We initiated this asking the city to take them and give them to these other groups so that they can be reused in housing programs. And so
They're doing us a favor, so
exactly,
I think
I want
we
to charge
don't.
them $500 for them to do us a favor.
Had we not had such a lucrative deed sale, I wouldn't
We
be
had a really
inclined to
good
wanna
deed
waive
sale.
it, but because this was properties in that deed sale, I recommend we waive that. I guess I'll make that part of my motion to approve resolution 2024-013, resolution authorizing the transfer of 2 properties to the city of Richmond and waiving any compensation for that transfer.
And this resolution also delineates our expectations for what the city does with the properties. So there's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second that
There's a
motion.
motion and a second to approve resolution 2024-013. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So how many copies, you think we need 3 copies or?
Sign till you get, till you gets tired.
We got 3 of them here, so
Might as
let's
well
just
do
go
all
ahead
three.
and do
Better
all
too
3.
many than too few.
Anything else, Don?
While I was gone, I think Steve or Bobby or both, thank you for the help, but we received payment on the closing of the sale of the property on Salisbury and 35 Palm Harbor property. Check was delivered, I understand, and I assume processed through the auditor's office. We can at least follow up on that, but we know we don't get to keep it all, so we need to remit half of that to the city of Richmond.
I would assume the commissioner's office executes that claim, pay the city.
Yeah, I think we just need the process going. The city is kind of dependent on us taking that.
And so the money that we retain is to go into the unsafe building fund?
Remember, we've had that discussion. I guess I'm gonna look to you for that guidance. It seems to read that it should.
I definitely think if you read the statute and apply it to the intent of the legislature, that's where it should go. Because the theory is that you have your unsafe building fund, and then when it expends funds from it, then as you recover them, they go back into replenish.
Right.
Obviously, we've never really had that highly funded and unsafe building. And I think we might as well face the reality that the trend that I'm seeing, whether it be for USBs, whether it be for issues with compliance with the health department, that we're facing a lot of substandard dwellings. And I think I can justify if there were to be a tweak on an SBA audit, I think we can justify putting these funds, which for us would be approximately $14,500, into the unsafe building fund, which with your non-reverting amount would put you up to about 25,000.
It's
You have 10 in there?
5,000, so
5,000.
5,000.
just under 20,000.
So it puts you up just under 20. So that would be my recommendation.
Now, the additional question there is, should we have all of the money put into the unsafe building fund and then we pay the city of Richmond out of the unsafe building fund? Or should we just have our share of it put into the unsafe
I
building?
think our share is all that would go into the unsafe building fund, because theoretically what we did was a cash advance to the city. That,
Exactly.
Okay.
So out of wherever it is now, I assume it's in the general fund somewhere.
Somewhere sitting in there.
We then pay it to the 14.5.
I think it came in
14.5.
Friday. I was gone, so that would have been
Yeah. Okay.
24th.
Okay. So I think we can.
I don't know if you need
take
any
care of it
action
from
on
there.
that. I mean, the minutes reflect how you're going to direct the monies to be applied, and
Correct.
we'll communicate that with the auditor, Steve, or someone. If they can,
And with the
Bobby, if
city.
you can create a claim payable to the city of Richmond, we can probably give Beth or controller a call as to how they want that designated.
And then a transfer for the R 14.5 to put it into the.
You should already have. You already have a.
We've already got it.
account for that.
We've already got it, but we need to get it into the unsafe building fund. Okay. And that may require writing a check rather than a transfer, since they're different funds. But we'll figure that out with the auditor.
Auditor can do that.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Same old question, because I keep calls daily. The interlocal agreements with Milton, Cambridge,
On the car.
well, no, on all the opioid
The
money.
opioid.
I thought I revised them before I left, and I thought you approved, and now do we just
All
need
of
to
them?
generate the document?
I think we just need to generate and
I
sign them,
think we
don't we?
need to have.
So
I mean,
it signed.
I've got them all, had them all done, and
Yeah.
we were looking at some changes in verbiage, and I can't
Right.
remember what it is or such.
What we haven't agreed to is allow them to make adjustments to how they spend some of that money within what was
Yeah, because
awarded
I sent you an
to
email
them.
earlier today.
And
Today,
I
I just
know
saw it,
Milton
yeah.
isn't the only one that would like to make adjustments. And because it's unrestricted funding, with the exception of a little bit in Cambridge City, I recommend that we allow them.
I have no problem with it as long as their total dollar amount does not exceed what we're giving them and they can explain where they spent it.
Right, I think,
Like the one in Milton was instead of a push car, he wanted another radio.
right,
It's a need, so.
I'm fine with that. I just wanna make sure that we communicate what our expectation is in terms of reporting, because they
Right.
still have to report. And now
Right.
they have to report that they did something different
Right.
than we originally approved the money for.
And because we hadn't approved,
Okay,
you know, the concept of, I don't want them to go off and, you know, like have a party. You know?
Exactly.
You know, we need to tell them this has to be spent
But don't you think because of
in a
that,
responsible way, we can't
that
tell
we
them
ought
it
to
has
ask-
to be.
we ought to have them request, like Milton already has?
Yeah, if they're gonna make a
We
change,
wanna
they need to
spend it
request.
for this instead of this, and then we approve that.
But is that before we send them the check or after they get the check? And does the council really have to sign? Do we have to wait for, because we aren't gonna have a workshop in June.
If it
Or in
is,
May.
if it is an interlocal agreement, then council has to approve it.
both,
correct?
both physical bodies have to approve it,
Yes.
otherwise it has to go to the Attorney General, I think, or we don't want to do
The
that.
Attorney General?
Yeah, it gets kicked up the
Do
street.
we really have to have an interlocal agreement to award opioid funds since they aren't tax dollars? I'd like to push this money out. I know
think
you
we
put a
need to
lot of
follow
work
the
in it.
process.
I think that's
we
what
need
we
to follow the
intentionally, I just need
process.
to let them know that it's not gonna be this month.
And if we're giving money to another community,
Then we need
it
to have.
requires an interlocal agreement.
I have
If it's
no,
tax
I have no
money-
problem with that at all, we just need to
Yeah,
get.
who did I give you Milton as a pro forma that we modified?
Yeah.
I think
Because
so.
you had, the only concerns you expressed were you wanted to extend the term because we weren't sure of the rate of expenditure of the monies once you got them, and require status of expenditure reports starting August 1 of 2024, and as to any unexpended funds then existing by August 1, 2025. So if the money wasn't spent by August, if it wasn't reported in the August 1, 2024 report, it
It
had to
would
get
be on
picked
the
up in
25.
August 1,
And can't we just
2025.
change that a little bit to say if there's any shift in the funds that they report,
Has to be reported
So we-
immediately.
and
So
into
we
that
can
interlocal and
Get
everything?
this out. Can we have the council sign retroactively so we don't have to wait till July to send the checks?
I can't speak to council, but
I think we prepare the documents when we have them. Well, we can make that decision.
And maybe
We can talk
Beth could, and council
talk
can
to
make it.
Beth. I can talk to Beth. We can see where they want to go. But I think we follow the process.
So you're gonna get those printed out and to us, and so we can approve them and by next week and then go.
well, yeah, I mean, like I say, the required documentation was really pretty minimal. I mean,
Right.
the opioid settlement probably is as loose as I've seen anything since the tobacco settlement. I mean, as far as
Because it's patterned after the tobacco settlement.
yeah.
Okay, that's
so,
all- that's
so
all
I mean, I
question.
think the answer to Mary Ann's questions would probably be yes, but and do you want to put yourself in a position of not being able?
And what if they say no?
And that's your call, but I can't recommend that.
Well, and they left open the possibility of a special meeting this morning. When
Okay, so
Well,
that'll work, they can have a special meeting, sign that, then we'll take, that's not a big deal.
Yeah, I
So
see, I
let's
haven't
just
checked
get
that.
our end approved and so they're ready, and then I can set up.
That was
the
May
meetings.
22nd. I didn't check that box. Meeting hadn't done it, so I know I got an email from somebody saying they approved the change. I hope you.
Yeah, we need to get this money out, but be thinking about that $69,000 that came in as a surprise. You know, I don't know what to call it. Some of it's 2026 money, some of it's 2023 money. It's new money.
Let's call it money.
But be thinking, and we do have money left over from 2023, so roughly $80-some thousand that we have to distribute yet this summer. So,
It's the same 30%, 70%.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Well, it's a little bit heavier on restricted because we've got to send like
Some's left.
3,500 back to the towns.
Okay.
But they've never told us how much. This is new money, but they haven't told us how much. It's a mess.
Yes, it is.
Do the monies that the towns receive, are they restricted?
They have
Yeah,
restricted
it's
and restricted
100%
also.
restricted.
Are they
So,
both?
Oh,
If
they have
it's-
both, don't they?
well,
If it's under a certain amount.
but the
it's
money
not.
they send to the county for the small towns has to be sent out with instructions that it's all restricted.
Oh, it is all.
So
The
we-
rebating
I thought
money
they had to both.
that you received.
We receive it.
Yeah, we
send it back to
receive
Then it's restricted.
restricted for some
I
reason.
know that.
So when we sent Milton $4.21,
That's
it was
restricted.
instructions that this is restricted.
Are they gonna spend a pair of gloves?
Maybe,
No,
maybe two.
Yeah. Or a just say no sign on the door. I don't know.
Okay. Anything else? Steve?
Look at your project sheet, just a little expansions since this morning. On the Chamber of Technology, recall that you're moving ahead with Wilco Electronics to pick up the ball and get this finished. He's given me a quote, and I'll have that for you next week, but it's the same money essentially for the two microphones, the microphone above the podium and the extra wireless that we had before. So it'll be covered in that amount of money that we have and still in that line item that you should see on your spreadsheet here. The IT department had the system back up and running to the way it was before last Friday. Monday when we came in, it didn't work. The software simply spools. I don't know whether that was connected to the work that we did over the weekend. Remember we had the power shut off entirely to this building, and then when it came back on, don't know. But IT is aware of it. They're in contact with the software provider, and obviously they couldn't work in here today because of all the meetings, but we're making a little bit of progress to get this finished. The courthouse marble, that's been on order. Just got a note that will be in about 10 days. And once that's in, then we'll schedule that on a weekend to have that repaired. The Coleman roof, recall that LWC will have a contract for you to look at next week to engage their services to provide that bid process for the roof on Coleman. The First Bank Expo Hall HVAC, they're tidying that up, removing the concrete that the old system was setting on. They moved the old system down into our maintenance building, insulating some of that new duct work. And so DLZ will be over here for a punch list in the next week, 10 days to finish that up. And then the landscape hardscape, I've moved that now to the project list, and LWC will be here next week to talk about the project and how you think that would conceptually look. And if you take a look at the handouts that I've given you, he sent me this just to see if you think we're on the right path as to what that might look like and what elements we want the front entrance of the courthouse to have. And if you look at that, it provides for that handicap.
Is that on the right? Is that one was at the ramp?
Yeah, the ramp is on the right.
The handicap ramp is on the right, but then the landing meets the handicap requirements right outside the doors. And then those, I'm sure they're concepts, but the steps themselves act as a barrier as well as those bollards there.
Lighting bollards is what they.
That looks good to me.
I like it.
I thought it's
I like
very,
it a lot.
I thought it's very complimentary of the front. In fact, without the landscaping in front of the courthouse.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Honestly, seeing the granite juxtaposed against the limestone, I think that looks beautiful.
So unless you think there's something he needs to tweak on this is kind of where his proposal will.
And to the right there, that landscape, that's just like flowers and.
Yeah.
That's what, okay.
Looks like a couple of little shrubs maybe,
Minimal, well, it's not,
Minimal. Minimal.
Couple
is the key word.
daisies, nothing fancy.
don't wanna go too much there, so. Yeah, it looks good, I like that.
It's clean, it looks so compatible with the architecture of the courthouse.
but and it's all concrete, not limestone, so it should
Yeah.
hopefully be.
And that is flat,
What?
the steps are totally smooth, right?
Yes. Well, I say that. Remember, this is a concept drawing. You'll be able
Yeah.
to drill that down a little bit further.
I mean, they look like stone,
Well, no, it'll be toward concrete.
totally,
Yeah, but
it is totally, I mean, they
Yeah.
look beautiful.
But if you look at it, it looks like it could be stamped.
Yeah, he may be doing
Yeah.
sand
Yeah, okay.
and concrete, so. That looks good.
Okay. So I'll send him that information
And
Have an
he'll be with
opportunity
us
to-
next week.
Yep.
Do
and he's scheduled in the afternoon. Remember we talked about
But remember, we also have
Budgets.
drainage board.
I told him 2:00.
Okay, and then we can accommodate EDC at some point other than 2:00 then.
And
How much time do you think we should allocate for Kevin?
I think 45 minutes, because you're going to talk about several different things.
Yeah, probably.
And then when we came in this Monday morning, we had the generator, the jail was running, and there's not a power outage. The transformer, it was an RP&L transformer that serves that area, had lost a leg, so there was low voltage going into the jail, which triggers the sensors on the generator to kick on. Well, when that happens, there's a safeguard in there because our generator's not big enough to run the chillers. Those are large chillers, and so there's a thing to kick those out. Well, apparently one of the chillers was running at the time, and so because we still had voltage going into the jail, albeit low voltage, the chiller continued to run, which increased the amps to the chiller, because, you know, for the chiller to continue to run, when you lower the voltage, the amps go up. So they're working on it. It may not survive because of the high voltage or high amperage that went into it. The other two chillers, and because of the weather that
What, you
day,
mean the generator may not survive?
no,
No,
chillers.
The chillers,
One chiller,
Yeah, there's 3 chillers.
one,
and only one was running.
And because the temperature was only like in the 70s that day, so there was only one chiller running. As the temperature goes up, more chillers kick on. So it seems like it was running because of the temperature outside, but it continued to run with the low voltage. So it might have screwed it up. Which, if you remember, these aren't cheap chillers.
no.
They had to be put in with a crane, and I think the last time they were around $100,000 now
Each.
but the other one, they've got one running. He's working on one now. He thinks it'll come up in the next hour, but it's this third one that was running at the time of the low voltage. Now here's the kicker. RP&L is saying that, well, it was probably lightning that hit the transformer, an act of God. Well,
Oh, wonderful.
no,
No.
there was no lightning that day. I checked the weather just now, and there wasn't even rain that day. So,
You can have dry lightning.
well,
It was
so
an
I don't
active
know
job.
whether this is an insurance claim job or what, but we'll get it first. We'll get it fixed first, and then sort through the cause of it later.
We filed a notice with our lawsuit with our insurance company.
Well, that's my next question. Should we do that?
Hey, yes,
I think we need to,
nothing to lose.
well.
Well, wait, yeah, we've already been fired by our property tax.
Okay, I'll follow up with that and we'll.
I think, well, we had a pop-up, were you here that day?
What, Sunday?
Yeah, were you here to absolutely swear beyond
No.
a shadow of a doubt that there was no
No.
lightning?
No, I can't say that. But I don't remember anything on the radar, but anyway. All
What
right,
else?
I will
I
follow
say
up
it was
with
an
that.
act of God.
You also have before you a request from the Boys and Girls Club of Wayne County for a reduction in the rental at the fairgrounds. And their request is to get the stage at no cost. And then last year, because Coleman was not available for them, we rented them the expo hall at the same cost as Coleman. And so they would like to have the expo hall at the same cost as Coleman this year.
So we did that because there was another event in Coleman, or it just wasn't,
There was another event.
okay. And so
And what is this event they're doing?
it's their annual
Smart
Smart
Futures
Futures
dinner.
dinner.
And I've had,
It's a fundraiser.
so that as you look at these, I've had Haley put together a spreadsheet, and that's what this sheet is. So in 2023,
Look for that.
that's when we adopted the new fee schedule that included the 25% reduction for not-for-profit. So in 2023, you had 3 not-for-profits that you gave something other than the 25% reduction to. And the Boys and Girls Club was one of those. And then so far this year, you've given 3 exceptions, and then there's been, 5 other ones that simply went with the 25% reduction. And then there's one that's already booked for 2025 that will use the 25% reduction and not any extra requests. So that's your decision-making thus far.
Is the exhibit building the sheep barn?
Yes.
Okay.
Why did Kiwanis get free usage?
Because they gave all of their money to.
Yeah, we voted on that.
to-
Yeah, I know, I couldn't
There
remember.
was 100% of the income went to Shriners.
No, it was, the
Children's
Children's
Hospital.
Hospital.
Children's
in
Hospital.
Northwest Riley
Right.
Hospital.
Oh, okay,
And it was like $18,000.
what a deal.
So, in this request, the Boys and Girls Club is asking for free use of the stage and expo hall for the price of Coleman, and an extra day at no cost for setup and tear down.
When you say the stage, you just mean the mobile stage,
Our-
not the
our
free
stage.
stage,
Yeah,
not the free stage
Not the
building.
free stage. Okay.
I'm sorry, what's the difference in the prices between the two?
Expo hall is what, 2,200, and Coleman is 950.
$950.
That's a big chunk.
60%.
And it's reason because they have 600 people. They're expecting 600 people.
Yeah.
So
Which-
Coleman wouldn't fit anyhow.
Well, no, the chamber does.
Chamber got
600
600 in
Coleman,
Coleman.
so they could do Coleman.
We set up for, what,
It's Coleman
625 in Coleman,
Yeah,
or
for
chamber?
the chamber this year.
Maybe they have club exhibits of some sort they want.
I've never been to one, I don't know what they set up,
guys' pleasure.
You know, but at some point, I'd like to get a little closer to a
Consistent.
consistent process. Whether that's a 50% discount for,
I mean, because next year they're going to say, well, you gave it to us for this price, so why
Yeah,
can't we?
why not?
I mean, it's like at some point we're going to have to. I mean, it's a good. I mean, way to grow. It's one. It's, but
it is.
can we split the difference and say 1,500 and a free stage? I mean,
When we say, you know, 50%. 50% for
1,100.
50% for
What does it
the,
cost to air
the new
condition?
building,
I don't know, because
25% on
remember,
paper,
the whole thing's
uh,
metered
cool.
together, and it's hard to,
What would it
The whole
cost?
fairgrounds is metered together?
yeah, there's only like 3 meters, and so it's hard to drill down one building. You kind of have to,
see the influx of it.
Guesstimate.
yeah.
I mean, everything's gonna be air conditioned for the fair, right?
That's my,
Goats and all, right?
yes,
Chickens?
yes.
You know, chickens don't really like it cold, they stop
Cold,
laying air
Expo
conditioned.
Hall will be air conditioned. No, they don't, we don't, it's open. They open the doors. But
And
it's
the,
just
the
hotter.
sheep barn is not air
No.
conditioned.
Well, no.
Well, what are you talking about goats then? Huh?
Goats are in Expo Hall.
Yeah, the goats
Oh,
are
they
the
put the
Expo Hall, and
goats
the
in
chicken, yeah.
Okay.
Goats, rabbits, chickens, dogs.
Okay.
It was born a barn.
Oh, absolutely.
So you're suggesting 50%.
1,100.
I mean,
What are they asking for?
Same
actually
price
for
as
the
Coleman,
same
which
price
is
as
$9.50.
Coleman. What about if we think consistently 25% discount for Coolman and 50% discount for Expo Hall for not-for-profits? I mean, I guess I don't want to encourage them to use Expo Hall if they don't need it,
Yeah.
but 75% of Coolman would still be less expensive than 50% of Expo Hall.
Except we're giving up an awful lot of revenue potential because it's not like 4-H where they have to give it up if a better deal comes along.
Correct.
I mean, we're giving up $1,100.
So what do you suggest?
I kind of like a case-by-case basis. I hate to have a
What do you
loctite.
suggest for this case?
1,100.
Which
But I
is-
hate to lock
which
it
is
into a
50%.
50. Yeah, I think 50% feels right for this event, but by feeling right for this one, I hate
I
to
hear
make
you. I don't
that.
want to lock it in
Yeah.
either, but just kind of as a general rule.
For some reason, 1,100 feels right.
Consistency
for
among
this.
us on a case by case.
Right. What did
I
we
don't
do
wanna
last
have
time
it
and
To
keep
go
track of it.
forward.
Right.
Yeah.
I like the idea of having this spreadsheet so we know, what did we
That's
do?
great.
What have we done in the past? And make sure we do this.
Mary Ann, is that your motion then?
Yeah, I move we give it to them
So-
for $1,100 or 50% off.
And use of the stage at no cost. is that
Oh,
what you're
yeah,
saying?
although that's a backbreaker, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, our guys have to set it up,
And you have to move
tear
it
it
over
down,
from Coleman.
move it.
Oh, what about all the tables? 600 tables, oh, that's a,
Are they renting their tables and chairs from us?
But
I think so.
they're gonna pay for that?
Yeah, they didn't ask for a discount on that.
Or are they using the old stuff? I don't know
I
what
don't know
they
the answer to that question, but
they
Let's
have a
say-
lot of
but
volunteers.
they've not asked for a discount, so.
Okay,
I
So-
volunteered a lot of hours at, haven't you volunteered for the Boys and Girls? They can get a real army of volunteers here down.
so what's the rental on the stage? It's not much, is it?
Per section,
They
it
can
could
rerun
be up
up to-
to, what, $600?
Yeah, I was just
It
saying 400 or
was like-
500,
Yeah,
600.
up
So,
to,
$50 for each section, and they don't have to use it all if they don't want to.
50%
What about
off on
a
the
50%
stage?
off on
Because
stage,
that's an out-of-pocket
50%
expense
off on the rent, and if they're using the tables and chairs, if they come back and ask for a discount, we can do that at a later time. But right now, they pay for the tables and chairs, unless you want to go 50% for the
No,
I don't want to give them anything they haven't asked
full
for.
price. Okay, full price tables and chairs, 50% discount on the building, 50% discount on however many pieces of the stage.
I mentioned my motion to include 50% off on the stage and the room.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Did you get that, Steve? Yep. And any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. What else, Stephen?
And then you have another spreadsheet that this comes from the fleet management. This is just information as we start to go into the budget process. These are the vehicles that are being requested by departments for the 2025 budget. The assessor is simply looking for a transfer of a vehicle within our fleet that, so they're not asking for a new one. We plugged in a new vehicle in the coroner's office. We haven't had an opportunity to talk to him yet, but we do know that in previous conversations, he's talked about replacing that Uplander van, and I know we've got a new coroner coming online, so we didn't want to lose sight of that possibility, so we plugged in the one. 2 vehicles from the highway department, 1 from public health, and 5 from the sheriff's department.
So a total of 10. Although one of them.
9
be
new
transferred.
and 1 transfer.
If we have
Maybe
one
we find
that can be transferred. Because the best one we have available is the Nitro that they want to get rid of.
And then looking for the commissioner's approval to dispose of 4 vehicles, not all at once, but as they are being replaced. These are vehicles that have been identified that will be phased out of the fleet, and we would sell these through that online auction as we did
Oh, yeah.
before.
Definitely.
So there's a vehicle S10, that's the vehicle, our numbering system, S10. It's a 2019 Ford Transport van, has 176,000 miles on it. This is being replaced by a new van. We have no more use of
Sheriff's
this.
transport.
Sheriff, yep. Second vehicle then is vehicle S74. This is a 2015 Chevrolet Tahoe. It has 111,000 miles on it. No, and then S75,
Which is a great vehicle.
which is a 2015 Tahoe that I understand the engine has expired on it, and it has 130,000 miles on it. And those are all from the jail. And then the other one is a 2001 Ford Ranger. That is vehicle 1516, and it only has 68,000, but the frame is rusting through on it. And according to the mechanic, it's becoming unsafe, and so we'll phase that out eventually as well. So there's 4 vehicles that we would like to.
And that one would be replaced with a ATV.
Yeah, we would not ask for a new vehicle to replace that one. Not a car,
Not
truck.
a car.
Yeah,
What department is that Ranger with?
That's the building.
building grounds.
Oh, yeah, that's gotta go.
It's that old white one that's all rusty.
So
Yes.
I'll make that motion that we dispose of and sell these 4 vehicles online auction. 4.
Even the one with the blown engine?
Yeah. What else are we gonna do with it?
Full disclosure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll second that motion.
I was saying we'd give it to Milton.
They
We
may
did
have an
give
extra
Milton
engine.
a car that had no transmission, and they just parked it on the north side of Milton for years.
The one we just did.
No, this goes back 10 years.
So there's a motion and a second to dispose of those vehicles. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
So as the equipment's removed from those, we rotate those out, we'll get those over to the auction house.
Right. Okay.
And that's all I have.
That is all you have. Okay.
Got a bunch of claims.
Okay.
Before I start, I would like to call attention to something that's developing, sealed claim. Check out the mental health center. Just think you, Brad, I've seen, maybe Ron too.
Okay.
Who pays for this, by the way? What
We do.
fund is that coming out of?
It has its own fund set up, its own line item that we need to keep replenishing, but it's general fund money.
It's our general fund. Because once those medical, doesn't it seem right that the medical bills are, why can't that be Medicaid?
It potentially can be, but I'm not sure.
Ron, can't you see that $10,000 claim? Why can't we try to get that medicated?
Let's go ahead with the
Yeah.
rest of the claims and let Ron take a look at that.
Because that can get out of control. Oops, I hadn't even looked at this. Budget line item, what is this?
That's our budgets. That we-
Oh, our budgets, oh,
Just
okay.
passing it out so we all can.
We're
look at
not
it.
gonna discuss this,
No,
right?
but we will next week, so I want you to have
Thank you
it.
very much.
I want you to have it, we can put the numbers together.
Yeah, and
with
Craig
you
Eason
by Friday.
sent his, very carefully prepared.
And next Wednesday, we'll have, where we typically have on the second Wednesday, all of our department heads in. We'll have them in individually to discuss their budgets with them.
Okay. First of all, I move for approval of commissioners' minutes dated May 22nd.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the minutes of May 22nd. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, move for approval of Indiana state taxes, payroll withdrawal dated June 3rd. Boston Mutual claim dated June 3rd. Payroll and poll workers, compensation of May 31. Done flex and garnishment of May 31. Retirement and federal payroll taxes dated May 31. Guardian ad litem, CASA, and regular claims dated May 29th. Regular claims dated May 30th. For limited claims from Menards and Schindler Elevator. Supplemental local income taxes dated June 3rd. Centerpoint Energy and local income tax dated June 4th. And regular claims dated today, June 5th. Move for approval of all of the above.
A motion and a second to approve those claims. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Also move for approval of a sealed claim for $54,000.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the sealed claims. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, anything else, Mary Ann, Ron?
I don't know what that is, I can imagine why you might have.
Yeah. Okay.
Did we approve this one already?
Yes,
I think you just need.
we did.
Yeah, 2 weeks worth of claims with payroll and. Some,
Jeff,
I don't think I've signed any of them yet.
we are not going to have a meeting on June 19th.
Correct.
And do not have a special meeting. I have not heard back from the Girl Scouts. Has anybody else maybe?
No.
We were going to meet with them on June 19th, and I asked for them to pick another date and have not heard back. Oh, so there was something there about a boss proclamation?
Yes. Do you have the copies of that? So BOSS is a program at IU East that Tim Scales runs. And he was in the other day and asked if we would issue a proclamation for Boss Day. So here is the proclamation. Whereas in 2007, Indiana University's Professor Tim Scales developed the curriculum titled BOSS, Business Opportunities for Self-Starters, to teach youth entrepreneurship. And whereas the original BOSS program was a state grant to teach the 160 students in a 2-year period covering 9 Indiana counties, and whereas the BOSS program has sustained 18 years and expanded to include BOSS International, BOSS Technologies, and BOSS Discoveries, and whereas the BOSS program has expanded beyond Indiana by reaching South Africa, India, Tunisia, and Mexico, and whereas the BOSS program exceeded the original goal of 160 youth to have instructed over 7,000 youth, and whereas the BOSS program was named top 3 for developing talent in North America in 2017 and 2019, the program was named number 1 for developing talent in North America for 2020, and whereas from 2019 to 2023, the BOSS program was spotlighted in the Indiana Business Journal and on WRTV News for including the program in all the Indianapolis public schools with the support of the Indiana University Kelley School of Business, and whereas in 2024, the BOSS Experience is being held in Wayne County, Indiana, with youth participating from all areas of the county to include Seton Catholic High School, Richmond High School, Centerville Abington High School, Lincoln High School, Hagerstown High School, and Northeastern High School. And whereas the BOSS program is a leader in youth entrepreneurship, creating a strong and vibrant foundation for our county and state economic development, today we celebrate buy local, study local, and stay local through the Indiana University East BOSS Experience with Professor Tim Scales. Now therefore be it hereby proclaimed that Friday, June 14th, 2024, be proclaimed BOSS Experience Day throughout Wayne County, Indiana, and may all her citizens celebrate this occasion. In witness whereof, members of the Wayne County Board of Commissioners hereunto set their hands to deem this proclamation effective this 14th day of June 2024.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the proclamation for BOSS Experience in Wayne County, Indiana for June 14th, 2024. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So we've got a proclamation for signature.
Will he be here the 12th to receive it?
He will not. I'm going to present it on the 14th. They have a little celebration thing at IU East.
That's
campus.
wonderful.
It's-
What a program.
It's been a great program, and Tim essentially developed it all on his own.
Oh,
You
gotta
need to
sign
sign
it.
that.
Yeah,
It,
I'm trying to get the claims out here.
when Tim was in the other day, I talked to him about whether he would be interested in working with the school systems on the leadership program that's funded through HELP, and he was really excited about it. So I'm going
Right.
to propose that to the 5 school systems and see whether they're open to that. So that takes care of the BOSS program. What else is on there, Bobby?
Hotel
2
increases.
hotel increases, what have we got there?
We've got an increase from the clerk's office to $169 a night for 1 night, 2 rooms at the Sheraton at Keystone for the state called conference. And then I have one for a council member for 1 night at the Renaissance Indy North for $167.
And that's for the council state call meeting, right?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve both of those increases for motel rooms. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And transfer station. Annually, we have to turn in a closure, post-closure statement assuring our standby letter of credit. And it just needs to be signed by the president of the commissioners. Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the closure for the transfer station. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. This just calls for the signature of the president on the letter. Okay.
Did we vote?
That, we did.
I'm not paying attention.
These are claims also.
Yeah, I guess you signed them all, didn't you? I think they were all signed. Signed all the claims, or not, just stick them up there for Bobby, that's what I was trying to keep them away
job.
from your area there,
Thank you. The
the black
black
hole.
hole that things are sucked into. Bobby, what else?
That's all I have.
Okay. Ron, anything else?
Nope.
Steve?
Nope.
Why do I have this nagging feeling that there's something else?
I do too. Like we gotta do it before mid, shoot.
At any rate, you did see the budget sheets that are relevant to us. There's the general fund, there's county ed, there's QCAP and Q Corp. And so review the history there, and we'll talk through those next week, and we will turn in our budget request in for by next Friday, which is the new due date. One of the things that I think it's important for us to continue to look at, and we've had requests in the past that have not been approved by council, is planning for transition, and so we can discuss that next week. But we need to plan for transition of department heads as before the fact, so that we can be ready for those as ready as we can be. So we'll talk more next week, but look at those budgets and be prepared to discuss and suggest changes for the 2025 budgets, and put together a request for next year. discuss a little bit in fleet management that we really don't know this week what's going to happen with our insurance program. Brad has talked to our agent, and we suggested the possibility of a 50% increase, although we think that will be more than it will actually turn out to be. But we need to incorporate some level of increase in our entire insurance program, and we don't have a meeting with them until the last Wednesday in June with our agent. So we won't have those numbers by next Friday. The number can always be lowered in the budget after it's advertised, but it cannot be increased after it's advertised. So just a note there that that's going to come up. The other insurance issue, I talked to Kim about working with Dunn on when they would be ready to come back and make recommendations, and Kim thought it would be about 60 days. I'm pushing for it to be 30 days.
Sooner.
Pushing for it to be 30 days, so I'll have that conversation with Kathy and see when we can get them for them to make recommendations.
We like happy councilmen.
Well, the timing is a function of where you already plan here.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
what we're putting, the only thing that she'll be bringing us that she hadn't already talked about, other than some changes in the laws by design, but will be the quotes for the excess coverage. You can have a laser pop up just like that. So if you ask them to quote earlier, either A, they're not going to lock it in for a period of time more proximate to the renewal date, or B, they'll hedge.
Well, there's a little more to talk about. We've often toyed with one of these years and really start being more aggressive about health savings accounts to help our employees with their out-of-pocket.
Well, except if they're on the traditional plan, they're not eligible for health savings.
No, we tried to
But
incentivize
we've been really
transitions.
moving people to the higher. And if we're going to be successful in moving people upward to the higher deductible, I think one of the elements to be successful in that goal, if that is our goal, will be lucrative health savings account. That's what the private sector has done, and if that is indeed the way of the future, which it appears to be in the private sector, then I think we have to seriously look at having a funded HSA.
The state is.
We have
the
one.
parameters out for the max you can contribute, I think, but we've just never elected to do it. So basically.
I don't recall there being a number that's the max, but I mean, we've currently done $1,000 a year. I don't think it's a whole lot more than that. The max
Oh,
would be.
yeah.
I don't think
Well,
we can
private sector has a whole lot more than that.
Well, I think we have a state.
Oh, there's a public sector cap that's much lower
At
than.
one time there was, I know, because we were looking at the options. In fact, when we first went to the $9,000 plan, I think they offered just the option. It was a year or so later.
We couldn't in year one because there was funding for something.
In that year one, we were still recovering from a bad year.
But it was also that if we paid for something, I forget what it was, but if we paid for it 100% under the preventative stuff, then you could not have an HSA. And in year one, we still did that, and then in year two, we transitioned to an
Yeah.
HSA.
I just don't think we're going to get people to go on a higher deductible until we do have some help with the HSA.
It just
Beyond
depends on their
the
station,
$1,000.
because if they're younger, they're not hitting, don't have a lot of scripts. You know, it can make.
Well, younger or lucky, or there's a lot of variables on that, but our out-of-pocket is just awful high for
Okay.
our wages.
Well, we will revisit that when we meet with Don again, and that'll be as soon as we can arrange it. As soon as they have the information they need to allow them to make a
Because
recommendation.
you know how much I love holidays. I love having a premium holiday for employees, but looking longer term, if we could have, if this would be the year to start that HSA nest egg, I think, if we could do that.
And the downside with that is that you're saying use that as a vehicle to encourage people to move to the high deductible plan. Because right now, that would mean a benefit for those on the high deductible plan, but potentially even an increased cost to those who stay on the traditional plan.
I can't see why we would have to. I would hope we wouldn't have to increase either plan
Okay,
premiums.
I'll
we
give you
will.
some thoughts on our contract.
Okay, next week.
That'd be great.
All right, anything else? If not, we are adjourned.